Whoa. Whoa. Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the final Drawclass stream of 2021, hosted by, you guessed it, me. And
Nathan.
Jacob's also here.
I'm here, but I'm not going to be helpful.
You don't know that.
You don't know that I will be.
That's true. It's a mystery.
I could be hurtful. I could be detrimental.
Yeah. You never know. You never know for sure. What's up, everyone? This is the drawing without the crystal snake from my my color palette challenge.
You've removed the snake.
I removed the snake and
for people's comfort
and put words instead.
Words are the new snake.
Because I never super know what to do for these draw classes. I'm gonna be honest. This is just some real talk right here.
Let's get real.
So I always go to the Drawclass chat on Discord and ask what people want to learn about from me specifically. What are, I'm always interested to know, like, what are things that people think I'm qualified to teach them about. And the responses always kind of surprise me because they ask about stuff that I don't consider my, like, strong suits, or at least things that I feel I do in a specific enough way that I can teach.
Right, yeah.
Because a lot of my process is just sort of fiddle-faddling. Just sort of figuring it out or getting away with it.
That's the title of
the title
thing.
So I thought we could do sort of a grab bag of these various things that people want to learn about, and rather than speak authoritatively on the exact correct way to do such and such, I can talk you through how I might go about trying to figure out how to do such and such, and maybe try and demystify certain processes or techniques or styles or whatever.
Yeah,
because
sure.
I think people sometimes get stuck in their head that, like, you need to be excellent at doing a certain type of thing or drawing a certain type of way before you can attempt it. And that's not the case.
It's also impossible.
Yeah, it's also impossible. So, what I thought would maybe be helpful is to just sort of show you that most of the time I'm just sort of blundering my way through a drawing until I feel I've gotten away with whatever I'm trying to do, and that maybe will encourage people to do that in their own work and not be so scared to try things, because that's a way you can get better. And so I'm glad I have you here, Jacob, because this is partially going to be building off of your practicing draw class, which was one of the first draw classes on the channel, and right. It's also going to be building a little bit off of my style mimicry class. So I thought we could start.
This is like an advanced course.
Yeah, it's sort of a
really.
Not really. No, it's an unvanced course.
It's unvanced. We're unvancing art to its simplest level, which is just freaking mess around.
Yeah, it's sort of a mess around. Also, good point, Jamie. For folks in chat who aren't in the Discord, if you have any suggestions for future draw classes, feel free to drop them here. Thank you, Jamie. And yeah, depending on how quickly it takes me to get through what I have prepared, we can definitely sort of add to the grab bag with just people's questions, which I think you also did a class on, sort of that same theme, which was just sort of answering your art questions class. So this is going to be kind of like that, but from my perspective more.
Yeah.
So I thought we could first just sort of do a little review of these past classes for either people who missed them or just want to remember. So as you put so eloquently in the practice class, a way to think about separating your practicing mindset versus your creating art or drawing mindset, where practice is input, drawing is output, right? So
Yeah.
when you're practicing, you're working to improve skills that you can then later use in your drawings when you're trying to make something that you plan on showing people. And so a lot of what I'm going to be talking about here can be applied to either. And I think the two are, necessarily linked. A lot of the times when I'm doing a speed draw, I'm doing drawing, right? But I'm also trying something out for the first time, and so I'm also practicing.
It's kind of both at once sometimes.
It's kind of both at
by
once
necessity
sometimes, and you can do that too. Like, obviously, setting aside specific time to practice basic fundamentals is always going to improve your art. But sometimes you'll be in the middle of a piece and maybe you'll just be like, I'm not loving the colors, or I wish the background was, a little bit more impactful or something. And rather than just like stopping your work and going to practice, you can try and figure out, you can try and figure it out. You can try and be like, okay, how do I accomplish this goal that I have set for myself with this drawing I'm working on right now? And then, of course, whether or not you succeed in that, you may then want to go back and try practicing it more, so that if you want to accomplish that goal in the future, you can. But worth, again, just like repeating and remembering that, like, you can separate in your mind between practice and drawing, because the more you practice and the more you practice with specific intention, the better your drawings will get, and the more tools you will have available in your repertoire to accomplish the goals that you have for your drawings.
Yeah, dude.
And then the other bits from this is, I just copied from that class, the stuff you had written down. When we're practicing, we're learning from reference, right? Learn from referencing. Usually, if you just Google search the type of thing you want to draw, you want to reference, you can find it. You can find specific poses, you can find specific art styles, referencing comics, cartoons, movies. These are all points of reference you can use to better accomplish whatever you're trying to accomplish in your drawings. And then you can reinforce from imagination. So you look at the reference, you copy it, you trace it. Again, tracing, great for practice. You don't really ever want to trace and then try and pass it off as your own art. But if you're just practicing, again, doing the input part of things, tracing's great, because you can really get a sense of like the shapes and the lines and the way the artist breaks down their work, and you can learn from that. And then reinforcing from your imagination. So, taking that reference and then trying to extrapolate from it, and adding your own your own stuff to it.
Yeah, that's a good recap, Nathan.
So that's the recap of that, and then the other recap I have is, of course, for style mimicry, which, again, the first thing, reference. You gotta get that reference, whether you're drawing specifically from just life drawing, or whether you're looking to adopt or adapt a specific technique or style or color palette or anything. You don't exist in a vacuum. There's plenty of stuff to pull from, and you can make your life a lot easier by just looking at it, finding inspiration. And then these other steps are specifically for if your goal is mimicry, right? Like that was the point of that class, was like, I want to, as closely as possible, mimic this art style. But that's usually not what you're trying to do. Usually you're trying to accomplish some sort of goal with your work. And so you don't necessarily need to do all of these steps in that instance. But if, say, you're looking at your drawing, you think, I don't know, these character designs are feeling kind of the same. They're not expressive enough for me. The shape language isn't strong enough, so maybe you're just looking up reference of artists who have really strong shape language, really good at conveying character through form. And so you're not really interested in their detailing or their execution. You're just looking at like the form. And so you can skip these other steps and just, look at form, look at shapes and just like that sort of silhouette, and just do that, and then hopefully apply that to your work. Or again, with any of these, right? Like you really just like the way, like for example, with my Laszlo drawing for the sincere fan art speed draw, right? I was specifically looking at Max Greca's art for execution, right? Like how does he accomplish this sort of dynamic shading and coloring?
Yeah.
And a lot of artists just have tutorials online, so that's a great. You don't even need to extrapolate. You can just sort of look at what they say they do. And so
Just
again,
have them tell you.
And again, like this was not a style mimic attempt. I was not trying to match his style, but I was trying to understand the techniques he used and use that to improve my own art in this piece. And so you can see, like, they're not the same style really, but there are techniques that are being borrowed.
Yeah, totally.
In this piece.
And I would say too, piggybacking off of that, oftentimes, like you said, just picking one aspect of a piece to try and learn from is a much easier way to learn from a piece than trying to figure out everything.
Right.
It's like a completed piece is so overwhelming, but if you say, oh, I just want to do a composition like this one,
right,
that's just one thing that's easy to put into your own work. Or like when I saw that Max Greca piece, the first thing I noticed was the shapes in that head.
Yes.
And I immediately thought, oh, I'd love to like break down those head shapes and try to do something like that.
Right. And that completely ignores the shading and that stuff. Like there's a lot to like about his work. In that instance, I was mostly focusing on shading.
Yeah, totally.
But yeah, like you could look at a piece of his and be like, I really like the shapes he uses, and or I really like the way he poses his figures out. So yeah, you can be more focused with this rather than being like, I want to perfectly mimic a person's style. It can be also used for, I want to learn something from this other artist. I want to incorporate an aspect of their art into my own. And that sort of brings me to I guess the what I keep coming back to here is sort of identifying the goal of your piece, because I'm mostly talking about drawing, not practice on this draw class. Practice, I think, is great for supplementing your work, but for the purposes of this class, I'm imagining you're working on a drawing and you want it, you know, it's here, you want it to be here, sort of thing. You have a goal in mind for it. And it can be a very simple goal, right? Like a lot of the times I'm just going for, I want it to look like the thing I want it to look like, right? Just a representational piece. That can be your goal, right? You can have other goals though, right? Like readability or simplicity, right? Like maybe you want to draw something, but you want it to be able to be understood for what it is at like a distance, or you know, you're going for like more simplicity, or again, you're looking to evoke a specific mood or feeling, you're looking to tell a story, right? These are all reasons why you might want to make a drawing. And so having a clear goal in mind for the thing you're making will help give you direction, right? Like we often talk about like push and pull, and in my mind that's sort of like the way of negotiating between whatever goals you have for your piece. So like say your goal is both, you want something to look like a specific character, but also you want it to be very simple and readable. So there's this push and pull between these two sort of goals you have, right? You want to include enough detail that it's understood as this specific character, but you want it to be simple enough that it meets whatever simplicity goal you have. And so you're basically just trying stuff, and that's sort of let's see, did I write this down? Yeah, you can have multiple goals, push and pull, and then delete your art, right? Don't be too precious with it. Yeah.
Sorry everyone.
Don't be too precious with it. Try stuff, and if it doesn't work, delete it and keep pushing through, right? This is some advice that I actually got in a comedy sketch writing workshop, but I think it applies to any artistic endeavor, which is don't think in terms of good and bad. Instead, does this work or not? Because good and bad is subjective, right? Like,
yeah,
I think in the sketch workshop it was like funny or not funny, because like again, it's subjective. Any art can be considered good or bad depending on who's looking at it. But if you know what you're trying to accomplish with your piece, then you can instead, you know, you can draw something, it looks good, but does it help accomplish the goal you were going for, or not? You know, does it work within what you're trying to accomplish or not? And I think that can be sort of freeing almost, because then you're not, you know, it lowers the stakes. You're not
Yeah,
trying to,
totally.
you're not trying to make something that's like perfect and good versus bad. It's just like, okay, this is what I wanted to do with this piece. I'm going to try adding this color here. I'm going to try adding this detail here.
Yeah, totally.
Did that help or not? If
It also
is it
kind of
working or
explains
yeah.
um it in a fun kind of roundabout way. And there are so many like speed draw episodes where one of us will be like, I made this piece, but I didn't really like it. And the rest of us are like, but it looks awesome. What are you
Right.
talking about? And it kind of comes back to this, did it work or not?
Yeah.
Oftentimes you can make a piece that is good.
Yeah.
By other people's standards, but it didn't match what you were hoping to achieve with does this work or not. So it's like two separate standards.
Yeah. Exactly. And you know, you know that you like the more you draw, the more you make art. Oh my god. Excuse me. The more you make art, the more I think clearly you'll be able to see what your goals are when you make art. Obviously, like, and I think this applies more to personal art than professional art, where like the goals are usually pretty straightforward, stated by the client that you're working for, right? Like if they've got a specific goal in mind, like then that's your direction. But if it's personal art, if it's something you're making for you, you have to figure out for yourself what your goal is for the piece. And the goal can change, right? Like you can have a loftier goal when you set out and then sort of rein it in, again, depending on does it work or not, right? Like if it's like, okay, what I'm doing here isn't working for the goal I set, well, maybe the goal needs to change. You know,
Yeah, totally.
you're in control, and you can always try again. And then I just included this Ira Glass quote because I really like it.
It's the classic one, isn't it?
It's the classic one. It's long, but I think it's worth remembering, right? I'm just gonna read it.
Go for it.
Imagine Ira Glass saying this. All of us who do creative work, we get into it because we have good taste. But there's like this gap. For the first couple of years that you're making stuff, what you're making isn't so good. It's not that great. It's trying to be good. It has ambition to be good, but it's not that good. But your taste, the thing that got you into the game, is still killer. And your taste is good enough that you can tell what you're making is kind of a disappointment to you. A lot of people never get past that phase. They quit. Everybody I know who does interesting creative work, they went through years where they had really good taste, that they could tell that what they were making wasn't as good as what they wanted it to be. They knew it fell short. Everybody goes through that. And if you're just starting out, or if you're still in this phase, you got to know it's normal. And the most important thing you can do is do a lot of work. Do a huge volume of work. Put yourself on a deadline so that every week or every month, you know you're going to finish one story. You know, replace story with art, drawing, whatever. And obviously change the deadline to whatever is workable for you. But it is only by going through a volume of work that you're going to catch up and close the gap. And the work you're making will be as good as your ambitions. It took longer to figure out how to... I took longer to figure out how to do this than anyone I've ever met. It takes a while. It's going to take you a while. It's normal to take a while. You just have to fight your way through that. So... again, like this is what I'm talking about with like having a goal for your work, trying to push your work towards the direction of that goal, and again, repetition. Do it as much as is reasonable for you to do it, and have this sort of balance between pure practice and also making finished art that you have specific goals for. so that you can apply your practice to your art, and then through doing the art, figure out what are things that you want to practice more.
Yeah, totally. This quote was also hugely inspirational for me too. The first time I heard it,
it's just a good quote.
it's one of those that just hits.
It's like, yeah,
I'm like, wow, that makes so much sense.
Your stuff isn't going to be as good as you want it to be at first, and it still probably isn't. Most people
I feel like there's always that gap.
Yeah.
Like the gap never goes away.
Yeah. People who make the most amazing stuff you've ever seen still in their mind want it to be better. And that's normal. That's part of the process. So I say all this so that you don't get discouraged, don't get overwhelmed, and try things, basically. Like, get out of your comfort zone with what you're working on. Try doing things differently than you're used to. And like that. So that's all the stuff I had written down. I have some examples of work that I can talk about how this sort of philosophy and way of thinking about it helped me accomplish them. So first, I thought we could look at my Avernus travel poster, right?
I see the layer is called Lel.
Yeah, the Lel of Hell.
The Lel of Hell.
And we can see, like, sort of directly, I can just show you the reference that I used to make this. It is half official D&D art of Avernus and half sort of vintage travel posters, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Like, this is the first thing I do usually when doing a speed draw, is create a collage of reference. So, you know, you can see what I was looking at here, like this sort of visuals. Of course, I also had in my imagination what I remember from playing the campaign as well, because there's a lot of imagination in a Dungeons and Dragons adventure. But like, I think the art is really good. The color palette is really good. I basically just used this color palette, but then again, I look at you know, this is the sort of style I want. I want this sort of very clean, very simplified travel poster style. And so trying to fuse these two elements together, you know, that's the goal, right? I want it to be evocative of this by way of this. And so if you go back and watch the speed draw, it's a lot of me just throwing stuff on the canvas and then erasing it, seeing how it looks, being like, no, that doesn't work, getting rid of it, trying again. I remember at one point I like add little sort of lava lines going through the rocks here, which again I thought looked cool watching it back, but it didn't work in my mind to accomplish what I was trying to accomplish here, which was to have a very clear focal point and then have a mostly simplified background. I thought it broke up these shapes. I liked the way these shapes were pretty big and simple, and by breaking them up, it looked cool, but it didn't work with the whole piece in my mind.
Yeah, totally.
And so, yeah, like that's I think the most straightforward example of you know, I didn't pick just one specific poster artist whose style I was 100% mimicking, but I used that sort of visual language and style from like a bunch of different references to inform how I was approaching this piece, right? Like I tried to limit everything to just a single shape except for this focal point where I added in some shading, which again you can see these references. Like most things are just sort of one shape except for, you know, the mountains. Maybe like you can see sort of there these little, you know, they're very particular with what gets detailed versus what is abstracted.
Yeah,
and
totally.
So I wanted to do that as well, and I wanted it to be very clear, like where the, like everything about this piece has the eye sort of focused in on this. You know, you want to be thinking about that stuff.
Yeah, and something you said earlier too is because I think where a lot of people get hung up when they're earlier on in their art journey is that it's really difficult to identify what the goal should be,
Mm-hmm.
or also to know and understand what is detracting from that goal.
Right.
And that's genuinely something that just comes to you more in time with practice. Like the more you make pieces and then compare them to stuff that you love and try to identify what's different about your piece that might be keeping it from being like the stuff you want it to be like. I mean, just like you said, Nathan, you added like those lava elements, but that created a new focal point.
Yeah.
And you looked back at the other pieces on the posters and said, oh, well, they don't put details in areas that shouldn't be drawing your attention.
Yeah.
So I will do the same thing.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how you refine that goal over time. Even though it's a lot harder to do when you're first starting out, just because there's so many aspects that you aren't quite sure on yet.
Yeah. And again, like if I had kept those lines in, I think it would have been fine. You know, you're allowed to have I don't want to say like make mistakes, but you are allowed to make mistakes, but you're also just allowed to like try stuff and leave it in and see how you like it. You know, like it's not the end of the world if you make a decision that maybe doesn't do exactly what you wanted. But I was just, yeah. What I'm trying to say is like you don't need to put too much pressure on yourself.
Yeah.
Any piece of art you make is it's output, but there's an element of input as well, right? Like every time you work on something, you're still learning from the process.
Yeah, totally.
That was another just thing that stuck with me from an improv class I took one time, where everyone in the class was feeling kind of nervous to make big moves in the scene, because you don't want to make a big move and then have it be wrong, right? And then you're embarrassed, you ruined the scene or whatever. But the teacher was like, no, take a big swing, because even if it wasn't correct, we'll all learn from it, right? Like,
yeah,
even if the scene isn't as good as it might have been otherwise, the fact that you chose to make a move, that you had the thought to do something and you acted on it, we can talk about it. We can try and figure out, okay, like this was your idea. Maybe your idea was good, but the way you executed wasn't, you know? So like trying stuff and having it not work is good, because you'll learn from making decisions and adding stuff to your art that doesn't work just as much, if not more, than if you just make all the right decisions. Because you're never gonna make all the right decisions in your art, right? Like
no, it's impossible.
It's impossible. So, do crazy stuff with your art.
Yeah.
Make decisions that make you uncomfortable, that you think might ruin the piece, because it's valuable. It's valuable to do that. You learn from it.
Yeah.
And maybe it'll make the piece better, actually. You don't know unless you try.
And there's such a fundamental difference between thinking about something and trying something.
Right.
Because like you can think how something might go if you attempted it, but I guarantee you 10 out of 10 times when you actually try it, it's going to be completely different than whatever you thought of.
Yes.
It's like the same phenomenon about like when you're like really like worried about something and it's like plaguing you for weeks.
Yeah.
And then you like go to a friend or a loved one and you're like, man, you know, I'm going to say this out loud for the first time, this thing I'm worried about. And like the instant it leaves your mouth, you're like, oh, that's stupid. Like, oh, that's nothing. Like I feel immediately better just having said it. It recontextualized the entire thing in my brain. And drawing's the same way. Like as soon as you do it, you save yourself so much thinking time. By doing it. It like answers the question definitively as to what would happen if you did it.
Yeah. Dupus says happy little accidents. Exactly. Right.
Yeah.
Like when you try it, you end up with something. You end up with something better. You end up with
and
something
you get
new,
better.
And you get better
instead of being the same.
Another example of a piece that I thought worked really well, but maybe could still has room for improvement, is this one I did for the One Piece speed draw, right?
I love this one.
I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. This zone in here I struggled with. But yeah, like this again, you know, it was very much a specific style mashup, right? Like I had a specific character in mind and a specific artist in mind, but you could also look at it from the perspective of like there was a specific mood I was trying to capture. When I was looking up Zoro or Zolo, however you want to pronounce it, reference, you know, looked up his like, you know, pictures of him, fan art people made of him, AMVs of just like cool shit he's done in One Piece. It's like you get a specific vibe, which is like badass, just like 3 swords, very strong, good at fighting, just like scrappy, gets beat up but keeps on coming back, you know? Like
yeah.
There's this vibe that he has, which to me evoked just like everything I thought was cool about a character when I was a teenager, you know? I still think this is cool. I don't purport to have
yeah, it's not changed.
A much more advanced sense of taste. I think I like more types of characters now. But this was like the end all be all of like cool character tropes for teenage Nathan. And so who did I think made the coolest art as teenage Nathan? It was this guy, Eduardo Risso, the artist of 100 Bullets, which was my my favorite comic book when I was in high school. And so I was like, okay, this is a vibe I'm trying to capture by you know, referencing something personal to me. And so that's why I came to this decision to do this style mashup, because I was like, this is the mood I want to capture. This is an artist that to me embodies like that mood, that very sort of like, I don't know, early 2000s, just edgy, cool, gritty, violent style. So again, I think I may have talked about this one in the style mashup or style mimicry Drawclass, but like again, it's the reference. It's just a reference collage, right? It's images of the character, images of the style. Just collage them all on a canvas. Look at them. This guy literally has a sword in his mouth, which was very fortunate.
Yeah, that's helpful.
It's just like, okay, that's how he. You don't see the bottom of the jaw, because again, like the way the One Piece artist draws mouths, they're huge, so you can see his whole mouth.
See all teeth all the time.
Yeah, but again, like these poses very similar, and yeah, just like trying to take bits and pieces and get that mood across, right? That like just like badass, right? And so that was my goal. That was my guiding light. And so every decision I made with this piece eventually came back to like, does it accomplish this goal? Is this evoking the mood I'm trying to evoke?
Yeah.
And again, the secondary goal of like readability, making sure this character is recognizable as this character, that was, I think, the secondary goal, which, you know, you accomplish just by like including identifiable pieces, like who else has 3 swords, the 3 earrings, this, like, you know, including the Straw Hat Pirate logo. And again, like this zone I struggled with, because I had this idea of like wanting very clean, discrete shapes, and you know, just having the white on black of the swords was very appealing to me. But then I had them intersecting this, so I maybe could have done a more efficient job with the layout. You know, maybe I could have found a way to include this symbol that so that it didn't overlap and cause this sort of tangent here with the sword shadow and the crossbones or whatever. But like overall, I was pretty happy with how this piece came together. But even still, like you can always go back to pieces that you like and still think, okay, how could I have executed this differently if I were to try and do something similar in the future? What could I do differently?
Yeah, you can learn from everything, even your own pieces.
And then what was the other one? This one. This one was different. This one was fully just sort of straight ahead, because I did not have a reference collage for this piece. This piece was purely
straight out the brain,
straight off the dome, because again, I was I keep saying again, even if it's not something I said already, because I don't know.
You're acknowledging that everything's been said before. Things have
been said before in some form, but basically, right, I think I said this on the episode, but when you give yourself a limitation, in this case a color palette, that in and of itself will give you direction, right? Like you already have parameters you have to work within. So for this one, the goal was just make something interesting with these colors. That was the only goal I had in mind. And so I just thought about what these colors evoked for me in my mind, and as you see in the video, I didn't thumbnail, I just took up the whole page with them. But I think thumbnailing is a great way to do this too, just like getting a bunch of ideas down, and just seeing what strikes your fancy, which is, I think, exactly what we were just talking about. seeing your idea on the page versus in your mind immediately recontextualizes it, and something that you're just thinking about, you're not going to be able to react to it the same way until you try and put it down on canvas, on paper or whatever, on your digital or physical canvas.
Yeah.
And so
we were talking about this, or I was talking about it with Julia the other night, about the difference between how much easier it is to edit something that already exists,
yes,
rather than to make something out of nothing. And essentially what you're doing in thumbnailing and in getting things down quickly is giving yourself something to edit, rather than like an act of pure creation from the ether.
right.
Because like once you can see it, then you can start to think, oh, how would I improve this thing I'm already seeing, rather than how would I make something perfect out of the thin air.
Yeah.
It's like why you can watch a show and be like, oh, if I had done it, I would do this thing differently. But you only have that knowledge because you're already seeing a product, and it makes it clear to see what you could change. And drawing is the same way.
Exactly. For the person who asked, Dupus asked, was this before or after the travel poster? This was after the travel poster. So, yeah, the image of like a floating thing, because you can see there's a very similar sort of composition here. So I think that composition was still pretty fresh in my mind. And that sort of flat art style as well. And
it
again,
reinforced what you learned.
Yeah, and for this one specifically, I didn't want to use gradients or anything. I wanted to really strictly adhere to the just using the colors I was given, because I thought that was a fun challenge, and I wanted to see if I could do it. And so it just sort of ended up working out that it ended up being very sort of postery again, because I didn't want to have to. Basically, I wanted to make life easier for myself, which is also a goal you can have in your art.
Yeah,
it's like,
I often have that goal.
You know, you can just be like, I want to try to make something without having to think too hard, and
or
so
spend a million years.
Yeah. So yeah, I could have done like a single form and worked out a lighting scheme where like this color was the highlight, and maybe this color was the shadow, and this was like a neutral tone, and then this was maybe like a reflected light or some sort of focal point. But I didn't feel like doing that. I was like, I want everything to be its own thing. You know, this green and this green I think were the closest, so I used this lighter green as sort of an accent for the darker green, but I kept all the forms pretty flat in this, and I think it worked okay. But again, like you don't have to approach every drawing you do exactly the same way. You can use a lot of reference if it's helpful, or if you just want to try messing around, that's okay too. That sort of goes back to that learn from referencing, reinforce from imagination. That applies to drawing as well as practice.
Yeah, you basically did that through those two pieces.
Yeah. This was my pure imagination following, I think it was the speed draw right after this one.
Yeah, they were pretty close to each other.
They were pretty close together. So, you can see they're very similar, but still, I think, evoke different moods. This one's much more active, I think, it's more ominous, whereas this one I think is a bit more whimsical, a bit more peaceful. But again, it's that same sort of using composition to tell a story sort of thing. And obviously this isn't the only composition type that you can use. Having something right in the middle with everything sort of pointing at it, that's a nice, simple, easy way to do it. But obviously if every piece of mine looked like this or had this same composition, it would get boring. People would be like, okay, we get it, so you want to try switching it up as much as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. It rounds out your styles.
Some more examples of valid goals. I mean, I think these are sort of broad ones, right? I think that for a lot of my work, especially a lot of my early work, it didn't get past just accurate representation, right? Like a lot of the time you're just trying to draw the thing. You just want it to look like the thing. And that's perfectly fine. Like that's, if you're an aspiring illustrator or you just want to get better at drawing representational art, like, yeah, that's all you don't need to be pushing every piece to be evocative of an emotion or make your audience feel anything beyond, oh, that's a cool elephant, that's a nice drawing of a guy.
Yeah, it looks like a guy.
It looks like the guy. Like that's fine. That's good. Like and then that's all you need to focus on for the piece. It's like, I want it to look like this guy. How can I make it look like it does? And then anything you add to the piece is filtered through that lens of like, does this make this look more or less like the guy? And then, then again, you're not in your head thinking like, oh, is this good or bad? It's just, am I accomplishing, is this working, right? Like if I add extra shadows under the brows, it maybe adds more mood, but it doesn't look as much like the guy I'm trying to draw, so it's not working in this piece. Do I still think that's the goal? Maybe I don't actually want it to look like this guy. Maybe I'm having fun adding more shading, making it more moody. Maybe it doesn't matter anymore whether or not it looks like the guy. I'm having fun. I'm enjoying adding mood to this piece. My goal has changed. Your goal's allowed to change.
Yeah, totally. Mine does basically every time we do a speed draw. I start with one goal and then the goal changes halfway through the piece once, because you're also like searching for the fun. Like I feel like the fun is always something you should aim towards.
Yeah.
And so like halfway through a piece, if you find what's making it fun, just like what you said, Nathan, it's totally fine to shift your goal entirely and be like, oh, I accidentally drew this face that's kind of funny, and now this is a funny piece. Now I want to make it as funny as possible.
Yeah. This
like
is
you can do, there's not really like any invalid goals.
I'm adding follow the fun, which is again an improv. It's an improv thing that I've heard stated a lot. Follow the fun.
It's good advice.
It's good for any art, I think.
Yeah.
Especially if again, like if you're doing professional, like commissioned work, follow the guidelines that
follow the brief.
Follow the brief.
It's not about your fun anymore at that point.
But even still, try and find the fun in what you're doing, because I think it'll still shine through. But especially for doing personal art, for stuff that you're trying to just grow as an artist and make art that you like, regardless of what your goal is going in, as you're working on it, I think checking in with yourself, seeing, am I enjoying this? what about this piece am I enjoying? Let's go in that direction. Is a good way to think about it, right? Like I think it's helpful to have a goal, a stated goal going in, but also knowing that you don't have to stay with it if it's not working for you. If you find that an aspect of your drawing is more fun to focus on, you're allowed. I give you permission to change your goal as you work.
You can say out loud, Nathan said it's okay.
Nathan said it's okay.
And then you can change your goal.
Yeah. Great. So that's sort of my like heady philosophy stuff that's just trying to like get you to think about making art as less of a less daunting. Basically, it's something you're doing for you most of the time, or at least it should be, and that you're in control of your goals and expectations, and you're allowed to experiment, you're allowed to fail, you're allowed to try things, and it's only going to make your art better in the long run. And so that's, and it took me a long time to realize all of this too, right? Like it's,
yeah, definitely.
Especially if you're the sort of person who like was given a lot of praise early on because like you displayed sort of an early talent, it can give you this sense of like, well, everything needs to be as good as I think it should be. It can make you very precious with your work, and then, you know, when your stuff isn't feeling up to your taste standard, you stop. And you don't need to do that, basically, is what I'm saying. Is you can push through it, you can find ways to make it fun, and you can give yourself permission to try things and make stuff that isn't technically the best, but is still fun for you, or interesting, or experimental.
Absolutely.
And so I thought I would just go through and talk about some of the topics that people asked about in the Discord. I think we sort of covered a little bit. One person was asking about just like conveying a story through background, which we kind of talked about a little bit. But again, I don't have hard and fast rules for this, but it's sort of the same process, right? Like if there's a specific or general sort of story you're trying to convey through your background of your piece, there are lots of different ways to convey that. There's composition, color palette, just sort of your general style, level of detailing. Like all of these things are going to contribute in different ways to the way people, the stories that are going to form in someone's head looking at it. So I don't know, let's just try it here. I'm just gonna make a new layer. We're just gonna thumbnail in some real rough backgrounds and see what sorts of stories we can tell, right?
Yeah, tell me a story, Nathan. It's story time.
It's story time. So we have you can just sort of have like
It's a butt.
It's a butt. Right? Like this is just sort of a nice, sort of serene, peaceful. You know, this tells a story of it's a little house.
Yeah, going back to like this is like the real basics here. Like what would you draw when you were first drawing ever? And it's always a house and a sun.
Yeah.
And it does tell a story. It's like this is a house, it's sunny. Nothing's wrong here.
But what if
the house is so far away.
Yeah, what if it's like
now, suddenly we're getting more of like a man versus nature, dwarfed by your environment type of feel.
Yeah, what sort of story does this tell? It's a little different, right? We've got these are all very sort of soft, round shapes. The only sort of hard edges are the man-made house itself. Now we've got we've got this sense of scale here, right? This you're not the big, and we can take it in the other direction too, right? Like it can just be like this. These are all just like pictures of a house on a hill, but they're all telling slightly different stories. And all I'm doing is changing the size of the house, how it's positioned in frame, and what's in the background. Right? Like this, we don't have any sense of. It's just like, oh, this is a house. Someone lives here.
Yeah,
oh, this is a house.
Is the point.
Someone. There aren't a lot of other people around, right? This is a nice pastoral, peaceful. It's like, oh, there is not a lot of people around for a long time, and also these mountains look ominous.
Yeah,
this is like a little oasis in the middle of like an ominous. What if we add, right? Like, so again, I don't have. This is where I always get stuck, right? Like I don't have the like formal art schooling to like have all of the terms for these. I'm sure they exist, right? Like I'm sure you could look up, because there are infinite good art tutorials online you can find, right? But yeah. What I'm trying to show you is like you can figure this out also. You don't need to be so like clinical about everything. You can just sort of try stuff, right? Like,
yeah,
you're just figuring it out, right? Art is, and I'll come back. I didn't write this one down, but art is lying, right? Art is lying.
Yeah, it's lying.
No, this house isn't real. These hills aren't real. These mountains aren't real. You're taking ideas about the three-dimensional world we live in, and you're putting lines on a flat surface, and you're lying and saying these lines are three-dimensional objects in space.
Yeah.
So, it's your lie. You can make it whatever you want.
Tell your own lie.
Tell your own lie. There. Yeah, art is magic. You're the wizards. It's illusion. It's fraud. It's stealing. It's all of these things.
It's murder.
It's a little bit murder. Yeah. So anyway, just like something to think about, right? Like if you're ever stuck with a background or something, just make the simplest stupid. It doesn't even need to be. I made a house. It doesn't even need to be. It could just be shapes, right? Like, again, the butt. Like, this is a background. This tells a different story than this.
Yeah.
Or even just like
different vibe.
Same basic composition, different vibe. You know, all there's so many different levers you have to pull, right? There's shape, there's positioning, and I haven't even touched on like color and value, right? Like,
yeah,
this versus oh god, come on, versus like
navigate all your layers so quickly.
right?
Yeah,
different vibe.
Also, I think you're reinforcing something that you talked about earlier a bit too, in that you're not like drawing these thumbnails knowing what the vibe is going to be. Like, you don't have to know when you're starting. He's literally just drawing and saying, what if I did this? Now let me look at it and ask myself, what is the vibe now?
Yeah.
And then you know that becomes knowledge that you have. Like, if I draw the house small and the mountains big and the lightning bolts, it gives me this kind of vibe. If I draw the house medium size and the field like this, it gives this kind of vibe.
Yeah.
But you only know because you tried it.
Exactly. It's okay to mess around. People also were asking about just like a Photoshop technical talk through. I'm happy to do that as well. So we can start with just like the most basic thing, which is my canvas. I always do a 16:9 canvas to start because that I'm almost always making art for YouTube.
And that's the screen
ratio. So that's just what I do. Obviously, and I think if anyone has done the commissions tier, you'll know that usually what I do is when I'm doing a commission for Patreon, is I'll start at this canvas size, do the drawing, and then just crop it to whatever feels right. So those are any dimension, but usually I'm starting with the 16:9. I'm doing 200 pixels per inch because I'm streaming and I don't want my computer to die, but usually I do 300 or 400 for like non-stream stuff. And then I just use the white background layer, make a new layer, and draw on it. I'm using a Cintiq, and I'm using this this Frendon inker brush is my go-to sketching brush. But you could just use the default. There are also just like so many brushes available for free now, if you have the Creative Cloud, or if you use like Clip Studio Paint. There are a bunch of brushes available there. But I think the brush doesn't super matter. I like one that has a nice thickness variation depending on pressure, and then I turn the opacity sensitivity on as well for when I'm sketching, which is this thing here.
But don't get caught in the trap of spending all your time searching through brushes,
right?
not actually drawing. It's easy to get caught in that trap.
Yeah,
I've done it a million times.
Sometimes that'll happen. So,
and it's never made me a better artist once.
Yeah, you have to set a time limit for how long you look at brushes. I think.
Yeah.
If you're gonna try out some brushes, give yourself a time limit, and then be like, okay, after this time, I need to pick one and draw something with it.
Because brushes are fun, but they won't do the work for you.
Right. What else? Again, this is just my process. This is my like most basic process for like most of my work. If I'm not trying to like push my my style for like a speed draw or anything, if I'm just trying to like get a render done, like say this is my sketch layer, right?
That's a classic Nathan boy.
Yeah.
I know this guy.
You know this guy. What I'll do is I will, once the sketch is complete, set the opacity to like around 50. Using the same brush, I turn the opacity sensitivity off. A lot of people, or some people, will say you shouldn't use just pure black to ink. You should use like an off black. I think that's probably true, but I don't. I just use black.
Yeah, me too.
I like it. And then I'll make a layer on top, and that'll be my inks layer. So we're just gonna ink our boy. This is a real rough ink. We're just doing, this is just for,
yeah, it's for you getting the gist.
You getting the gist. We're figuring it out / getting away with it. I was really trying to find, there's a comic, someone posted this on Twitter a long time ago, and I was trying to find it, where it's just like some comic artist posted this like real short, like one panel comic with the caption 90% of all art is this, and it's just it's like one or two panels of like a guy going like scribbling and then going, okay, I think I got away with it. And that, because again, it's like I said, it's lies. None of this is real, right? Like, this boy doesn't exist.
He can't hurt you.
He can't hurt you.
But you can't hurt him either.
Yeah.
You're at an impasse with this boy. You simply must accept him.
You must accept the boy. Then you get rid of the old sketch layer, take a look. Like that. And then typically for colors, I'm just gonna close this line off. I'm gonna make this a bust of a boy. Try and close all my lines. What I like to do is, and this is a technique I learned from Caldwell, I will do a little select. This is the magic wand tool, select. I go to the select option at the top of the screen, go to modify, expand, because usually I'm not using just like a pixel perfect clean brush. So I'll usually expand it by 2 pixels. Then we go back to the select, and we, where is it? Inverse. Select the inverse, make a new layer underneath the inks, take around a 50% gray and fill that in. And then this is what I will color on top of. And I think just like dropping that gray behind, it helps with color relevancy is, I think, the term that I heard Julia use one time.
Yeah.
But it helps just like fill in all the gaps, and then when you're going through picking colors, you have this gray to compare them against instead of the white, which is just, I think it just helps. It just helps. I don't exactly know why. Again, color relevancy. Seeing how a color looks against gray is
well, it's good not to base all your color choices on a stark white.
Yeah.
Because everything's going to look different when it's next to a bright white. So you want like a neutral tone, from my understanding.
Yeah. And so...
as someone else who didn't go to art school too.
Yeah. And then for flatting in the colors, we'll make a new layer. For my flats, I've chosen this sort of just like pinkish color. You know, he doesn't need to be pink. Let's make this boy interesting. It's gonna be an interesting boy. We're gonna make him like blue. It's like an alien boy. I don't know.
This is who Eiffel 65 was warning us about.
Yeah. Dabba-dee-dabba-die. He's coming. And again, because my inker brush is sort of a textured brush, rather than just using the paint bucket tool, I make a selection. In actions, I have this whole process as an action, which you can do by going to actions, clicking record, and then doing the things I'm about to do. But so once you have your selection, you would click record, go to select, modify, expand. Again, I do the 2 pixels, click OK. Then you go to edit, fill, foreground color, click OK, select, deselect, and then you would click the stop. And so that's what I have here. It's my expand fill, and it's just this. It expands, it fills, and it deselects. So now for the rest of it, I'm just going to use my action here. Let's give him some like purple hair. And so I can just click this once, and it does that process.
I do the same thing, and I got it from Nathan. Except I bound mine to F4.
Oh, nice. And then, you know, sometimes you'll have areas that you want to color in differently, but you didn't line them in. So usually that happens for me with like the whites of eyes. So I just draw in the line on the flats layer and then do the same thing.
What an interesting boy.
He's just kind of an interesting boy.
Yeah, he's got some stuff going on I'd like to hear about.
And then usually I'll add some sort of a shading layer. And again, this is a very simplified way of doing things. For a richer, more dynamic shading experience, it's good to actually choose specific shading colors to go with each of your flat colors. But if I'm in a hurry, I want to save some time, I'll just make a multiply layer. Create a clipping mask for that layer. So now whatever I put on this layer can only go on the flats layer. So even if I do stuff, it's only going to show up on the flats layer. And then I'll pick usually some sort of gray, pretty over here on the gray side, but you know, since he's already blue, maybe we'll make the shading color a little bit warmer, just to see.
Because he's interesting.
Because he's such an interesting boy is the thing.
He's not going to have a cool toned shadow.
And typically, you want to choose a light source. So let's just say the light's coming from here. typically I say. You always want to. It's just sometimes I forget, and then I'm like, oh no. But yeah, if you're doing it right, you choose a light source. You put the
light's coming from wherever. Who cares?
Yeah, you know, usually in the world there are more than one sources of light in a given situation. So shadows are doing whatever. But for ease, for simplicity's sake here, there's one main light source, and that's what's casting all the shadows. And we're just sort of adding them in, right? Considering again the fake three-dimensional form of this very interesting boy, as we draw these shadows. Yeah, I don't even, you know, maybe this collar has like a bit of a thing here. Like that.
Yeah, we're just lying about the three-dimensional form of this fake interesting boy.
Yeah.
In order to make fake shadows.
So this is my very basic sort of how to use Photoshop to do a little illustration. And then you can, of course, like you can get as complicated as you want with it, right? Like you can add as many different shading layers as you want. I usually try and keep it as simple as possible, but like you don't have to. You can have like this main shading layer, and then you're like, okay, but then there's some real dark shadows right here and right here.
If you want more info on that, I recommend going and watching Karina's Fix It in Post Drawclass.
Yeah, she did
from recently. Is that one up on the channel yet?
I think it'll be going up at the end of the month. If you have anyone here in chat now has access to
watch it.
Yeah. Has access to the VOD, but by the time this VOD goes up, that VOD will also be up.
That's true
for everyone.
So we're right no matter what.
And then another cool thing you can do is use adjustments. I mostly am familiar with hue, saturation, and color balance. So like, say I want to make this boy even more interesting. Really up that saturation, you know? Or I'm like, you know, let's see what other interesting types of boy we could have. Slide that hue around.
So many boy types.
And again, this is just a cool thing that Photoshop lets you do. And I'm sure other drawing programs have something similar where it's just like, you don't have to be so precious with the colors you flat in, because you can change them, right? You can even make a selection. I'll turn off sample all layers because I have a bunch of stuff going on and I just want to get like maybe just his hair, right? Like I just think his hair is not interesting enough. So I select that, then go to adjustments, and then I'm like, okay, what would he look like with some different colored hairs? Like, ooh, this pink is actually really nice.
That's pretty interesting.
Yeah, let's adjust the saturation. We can adjust how light it is. Yeah. And you can do that.
This is the treat of digital art.
Yeah. So these are just some things that, like, again, to add to the figuring it out, messing around with it. These are ways that you can mess around with your art. Anything you do in digital art, you can adjust, right? Especially if you make new layers. A lot of times when I say delete your art, what I actually mean is take the art that you have, save it in a folder, duplicate it, hide that folder, and then mess around with it and see if
it's a figurative deletion,
because this is something I do a lot in my speed draws. Is like I'll get to a certain point where I'm like, okay, I kind of like this, but I want to push it further, but I don't want to destroy it if it messes up.
Yeah.
So, you know, if you ever find yourself at that point where you like what you have but you don't feel like it's complete and you want to try messing around with it, do a soft delete on your art. Save what you have and then make a new version that you can heck up.
Delete your preconceived notions.
Delete your
about
preconceived
what your
notions
art can be.
of what delete your art means. Yeah. Anyway, so that's my little simple technical guide. What was the other thing? People had asked about comics. Again, I think that between the 4 Drawfee hosts, I probably have the least experience making comics, but I've done a fair amount.
I mean, we've all made a lot of comics.
We've all made a lot of comics, but I think that in terms of volume of work, mine is I switched to the like editor role pretty quickly.
That's true.
At College Humor. So I was reviewing a lot of comics, but I wasn't making as many, whereas you and Karina and Julia have made like a lot of of comics. And so I think each of us probably has a lot to say on that subject, and that could take an entire class. But I wanted to touch on that just a little bit because it was something people brought up. So I thought we could look at some old What Should We Draws.
Yeah.
And you can see that these are ones that I laid out because the layout is pretty uniform, pretty standard. This was me, I would say, not pushing past my comfort zone.
But if we consider the goal,
right,
like you mentioned earlier, like the goal wasn't really to push past your comfort zone. No. It was to deliver the joke,
yes,
in as clear a way as possible.
Some things to keep in mind: trying to frame each panel differently. Like the easiest thing you can do in a comic, right, is just have it be person A, person B, you know, in the almost identical pose or identical placement throughout, and just have word bubble, you know, and that's fine. That it's effective, it's simple. If like what you're trying to do is like make a comic a day or something, like that's a way to do it. I know that like what Adam Ellis has like just a library of facial expressions he has saved that he can like interpose onto his drawings for his comics, which like, you know, ways to save time. That's like save yourself time, make life easier for yourself. Like there's
only
nothing,
draw once.
There's nothing wrong with that. I think that's perfectly valid. But yeah, like for this one, I wanted it to feel like dynamic, right? Like we get this sense of motion in this one. They're walking. Now they're looking at something. We're seeing them from whatever they're looking at's point of view. We get a nice close in on the guy's face as he sees it for the first time. We have this tension here where we're not sure how he's going to react. And then we get this final wide shot where we see it's sexy Sonic. And he loves it.
He loves it, of course.
This one, I think I sketched this one and Caldwell colored it. Like this looks like a very Caldwell color ink job.
Yeah.
Where again, we have like every panel the panel shapes are all the same, but we have this sort of orangey lighting here, contrasted with this more blue lighting here to indicate we're in two different locations. We have this sort of giant golden arch on the window.
A little bit of a fancier composition there.
Yeah. And then we also have it reflected in the glasses here, so we're hinting at something, and then it's revealed he's talking to Ronald McDonald, and then he's in bed with Grimace. So
of course,
it's very stupid. But yeah, like what you show versus I think these are both good examples of like letting the having something get revealed. You don't see what they're talking about. You don't see who he's talking to until later on. And so withholding information for reveal is, it can be comedic. It can help add drama or whatever you're trying to do in your comic, whether it's be funny or be dramatic. I also have some examples of comics that Caldwell laid out, which you can see. He's much more freeform with his panels, which I think makes for a more visually interesting experience to read. It's not just right, like as opposed to these where it's like whoop whoop whoop. It's all
yeah.
These ones is asymmetrical, which I think is an improvement. And also Caldwell, this is a thing Caldwell loves to do, is have the word bubbles bump outside the panel.
I like doing that too.
Yeah, it's really nice. It creates a nice effect. And again, this is very much sort of like there's a rhythm to it, right? We have this establishing shot here. Then we have this almost feels like an animated sequence, right? Like we want to get this shot of the woman grabbing her life alert, the cat paw coming into frame and swatting it away.
Yeah, it's all
boop, boop, boop.
Connected.
Then we get the reverse shot of the cat looking evil, but then it's being thwarted. And then it turns out she had another thing specifically to call for help because her cat's trying to kill her. Because all cats are evil, even you. Again, like these are all fine they're not the best comics ever made, but they're
they were made as the result of a podcast
also.
Yeah.
And yeah, like it's whether or not you think it's funny, like it tells the story. It conveys the information in an interesting way, I think.
Yeah, I think so too.
This one's one of my faves.
That one is really good.
Where again, like we have instead of using, framing this inside the panel is just the stone slab here. You don't need to be bound by just like keeping all the panels the same. If what you're looking at is roughly the same shape as the panel, you can just do that. You're allowed.
Yeah, totally.
And again, we have this like interesting big panel, small panel, small panel, big panel.
It's no surprise Caldwell got into storyboarding.
Yeah.
After this,
the panels with just Jim Davis are the big ones, the ones where he's with another person. It's like this is almost exactly shot for shot. It's a little bit wider out, and he shoots him, and then it's back to him close up.
I just love the implication that Jim Davis brought a gun here just in case.
Just in case.
He knew something, he might have to do this.
Yeah. And then this is This is a comic by neither me or Caldwell. Crap. I had the person's name and then I forgot it.
Nathan.
This is a comic by...
Who's it by?
Steve Ellis. I wonder if he's related to Adam Ellis.
All Ellises are related.
Yeah. And this is a lot of really interesting layout stuff happening here, right? Like we have big panel up top, sort of over top of these ones, and within it we have this close up, right? So like we get this establishing shot, and we see that like there's something going on with this guy. He's looking at his hand thing. So that we're seeing where we are, and then something that the artist wants us to view as important. Then we see this bird show up. We see a close-up of the guy's face and a close-up of the bird's face, like they're looking at each other. Then we're over here. It looks like he's remembering. He's remembering something. Panel. We got a little memory, this little squiggly line around here to indicate he's like thinking back. Then we have these beautiful, like, I love a super wide.
Yeah, that's cool.
Very, very cool. And then all of a sudden the framing shifts, right? Like he's small. He's the same amount of small, but in this much bigger panel. And we get this incredible sense of scale all of a sudden, where he's discovered whatever the heck this giant robot is. We get a close-up of his reaction to it, and then the robot's eyes turn on.
Yeah, cool panels. Cool
I don't
pages.
know who this guy is. I don't know where we are. I don't know what the story is. But I'm invested, right? Like,
yeah, I know what's happening in these 2 pages. With no
words, we've gotten, we're in it, right? Like we've been fully pulled into this story. We have a sense of like danger. We have a sense of sort of the world we're in, where there's like this technology fused with like biology. We're exploring something. And I love, again, this sort of contrast. All of the background is this greenish blue. Everything this guy's doing, his technology, like, is purple. This purple seems to indicate like the active technology that's currently in use, which again is mirrored here, where whatever technology he's using maybe is connected to this one, because again we have this same purple. We're getting a lot of information. Everything being done is intentional, from the panel layout to what we're seeing in each panel to like what stays inside the panel versus not, how the panels are interacting with one another. Yeah, again, like this goes back to just, if you want to improve something, someone's done it. Someone's done it really good, and you can look it up. You can take a look at what they're doing and be like, okay, yeah, I get it. I see it. Now I can try it, you know?
Yeah. And you know this dude, he didn't like come to draw these comic pages and was like, I know the exact layout I will use, and then put all these panels down immediately.
Right. I think
you know, he tried like a million different variations of panels and placement and art, and before landing on this, just like any artist does.
Let me see if
he was messing around.
Yeah, I can show you.
He was figuring it out and getting away with it.
He has some earlier sketches up.
Oh, we don't even have to question.
So yeah, very just like gestural Just like this is all just like vibe and mood,
Yeah.
right? Like it's all just he's focused on movement and just getting this stuff down before he's even, you know, refined anything. He's got this sense of beats, like story beats. We got going in, and you can see like thinking about it in terms of just like flow.
Like the flow of the page, yeah.
Yeah. Where's the eye going? Because again, it's magic. You're tricking. It's all a trick. This man isn't real. None of this is real. This is all just lines and colors on page, and it's tricking you into believing this guy is existing in a three-dimensional space, and he's moving and he's interacting with it, and it's all just still flat lines.
Yeah.
But it's a trick. It's an effective trick.
It's something I think about a lot when I'm looking at like really good art that like I want to like, and I'm like, I wish I was that good. I always have to remind myself like exactly what you said, basically, which is like the person that made this incredible art I'm looking at literally just took their hand and a stylus,
yeah,
and put it on the screen and drew all the lines in the right way.
Yep.
Like in terms of like physical motion of what they did, it's no different from what I do.
Yep.
Like, you know, anyone, you could just pick up a stylus, put it on there, and if you moved your arm in the right way, you could get the exact same result that they did.
Yeah.
It's like to reduce it down to like its most basic form really makes it seem like, oh, I could do that too. I just have to learn the right way to move my arm.
Yeah.
And the right way to think about these things.
Yeah, and what is right for you isn't necessarily going to be what was right for that person, you know? Like,
yeah.
A question I get asked a lot is like, how do you develop an art style? And it's too late. You don't develop it. It's already doing it.
Yeah, you know? It's happening.
There's a specific way that you and only you make drawings. And no matter how versatile or you know, experimental you try and be, there's still like certain things about the way you draw that are unique to you. And this is something that like I struggle with too, because I don't know that I'd be able to identify what makes my art style, you know?
But I feel like other people can.
Yeah, I
they
try
like
and
see it and they know.
I try and make my art style very adaptable. But there are certain things that I do that I don't even notice. And it's just, you know, and it's gonna change, right? Like the more you work at something, the more input, the more practice, the more you pull from reference, the larger your mental visual library becomes, the more tools in your tool belt, the more your style will develop. But there's still going to be something about it that's unique to you, which I think is really cool.
It is cool.
That it's
like little ingrained habits.
It's inescapable.
And it's like the ways that your mind has chosen to remember how to depict things.
Yeah.
Because like if me and Nathan both sit down and we're like, let's each draw a tree. I've got like a go-to shorthand for a tree that my brain reduced it down to. And was like, if you need to draw a tree, just do this. And Nathan's got a totally different one. And if we both drew a tree, it would be a different looking tree based on that like visual shorthand.
Yeah.
And based on like what's comfortable and what we enjoy doing more.
Speaking of trees, I really like the tree you drew in the Christmas episode that just came out. Your little like floppy over Christmas tree.
Oh, thank you. I don't even remember what it looked like.
It was like I'll try and do it. See, it's gonna look different, but like
I wish I hadn't said trees, because trees are not something I'm very good at drawing in general. But
it was like, and I'm gonna butcher it, but like you've got this very smooth. It sort of was like this. It had like it was like coming over like that.
That seems about right.
But it had so much personality. And then you had like the little lady underneath.
There she is. It's what was it? Nanny for the Christmas. Nanny for Christmas.
Nanny for Christmas, yeah. But again, like this is different from what you drew. This is my bad fan art of it.
It's good though.
There she is.
It's got its own little character.
It's like I gave it a face. It's a Babadook.
I'm gonna eat the nanny for Christmas.
Baba tree. There he goes. Anyway, we've got like 15 minutes left. I figured let's open it up to questions, and then since the way it worked out, I'm gonna be hosting the draw class for January as well. I thought I'd do a little homework assignment for people. A little optional homework assignment for people, so that we can maybe do some critique, some look and critique next month.
Hell yeah.
But before that, does anyone have any questions?
Questiones.
Or things you'd like to see me try out. Because that can be my homework also, is to bring some more examples of figuring it out.
Yeah, maybe you could do like a live demonstration of, like, if you had to combine two styles, like how would you do it?
Yeah,
looking at the reference, like what elements do you take?
Yeah. I did that on the style mimicry one. I did Hatsune Miku in Jack Kirby style.
Well, maybe, and so everyone could just go watch that again then.
Yeah, but like that was again specifically for like full on mimicry, whereas if it's more just like trying to figure out how to do blank, you know, how would I go about doing that?
Identity Crisis wants us to actually both draw the same thing.
Oh, that's fun.
Should we do that
for next time, or for now?
I mean, we can do it right now.
We can do it right now. Okay, yeah. What thing should Jacob and I both draw?
Like something very basic.
Yeah.
I gotta open Photoshop. I haven't drawn today.
Wow.
I've done all my art that I needed to do.
Wow, even your Patreons?
Even my Patreons.
Wow, congrats, dude.
Thank you.
I need to do mine. I got 2 D&D animals for mine this month.
I'm seeing a cow.
A cow? Okay, let's both draw a cow.
All right, let me get my file up here. I'm gonna not look at your cow.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know how realistic to make this cow. I'm just gonna try and draw a little cow. All right. This is cow from memory. If I was trying to draw a realistic cow, I'd probably look up reference. But this is just like a little basic cow.
Yeah. I'm going to be sort of going with my... I mean, you already know how I draw a cow.
Yeah, you drew a really good cow on Draga. Perfect. Maybe little bean cow.
I'll put this one in like a slightly different pose.
Yeah. Cow sort of like... They got like this thing on the back. Like they've got like... I don't know what that is. It's like the way the body, they're sort of like big squares.
Cows have like little horns, right?
Yeah, unless they're Longhorns, Texas Longhorns, right? That's a
Yeah,
type
but
of cow.
that's a bull, right?
Right. Well, a bull, what is a bull if not a male cow?
Damn, dude. You're right.
And I don't know. These are like horse legs. I don't know if how different cow legs are from horse legs. But sort of probably similar. They're both hooved creatures. So again, you can see I've already erased so much. Just like drawing stuff, trying to remember, erase, start over, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I'll definitely say that if you, the viewer, ever want to know what your style is, do this exercise that we're doing. We'll draw a cow, draw anything without looking at reference.
Yeah.
Whatever you produce sort of from your imagination when put on the spot, that's sort of your style at the moment. It's whatever you can generate at the time, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
At least that's what I think about it as.
I agree. Truly don't.
I used an actual brush for this.
Do it. Okay. So it's coming towards us because I made the front legs lower down. So we'll just say it's coming towards us rather than
it could be coming towards you.
Rather than redraw the legs.
No rule against it.
Sort of coming at us. I think their heads are bigger than what I've drawn, like relative to their bodies. Cows got like big heads.
As you'll see, Nathan takes a very let me think about what it would actually look like approach that I don't necessarily subscribe to.
But yours is still going to read as cow is the thing.
I think about what's the vibe that cow give me when I think about cow.
Yeah. Oh, I gotta give it an udder. It's a cow.
Oh, the udder. I almost forgot.
How to udder go? Sort of like that's gonna change where I put this leg. Oh god. It's gonna screw up everything. Alright, here we go. Udder go here. There. And then the other leg, just put it there. Great.
All right, my cow is done.
Patch of grass.
I'll put a patch of grass under mine too.
All right. So here's my cow. And then let's show your cow.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen. Or
yeah.
I'll put up a hold screen so people don't have to see my ugly desktop background. And then you share yours.
Zoom, hello.
Hello, Zoom.
Hello, Zoom.
Oh, that's really good.
There it is.
Look at that. I love that.
So you see that we both approach it very differently.
It's so shapy.
But yours is looks like a real cow. Like you thought about what a real cow looks like.
Yours looks like I wanna roll it. I wanna roll it down a hill.
I wanna roll it too.
That's all. I love that you've been using the scratch.
I really like the scratch.
It's so
loose. It makes
loose.
me be so loose. It makes me be way looser, and then I have more fun.
yeah, it's a whole vibe.
It's a vibe cow.
It's a vibe cow. Um,
But you can ask any number of artists to do this thing, and they'll all produce different cows for you.
yeah.
That's the beauty.
Ask every artist to draw a cow.
I'm gonna stop sharing again.
Okay, wait. Okay, go for it. We'll start sharing mine again.
Yeah.
There's mine.
I mean, yours is a great cow. It's got like the actual like bone structure that I think of when I think of a cow, like the leg shapes and like the on the top of its like, what is that, like hip
Yeah.
thing up
It's
there?
like this thing.
Yeah.
I love this shape.
Like that stuff is so cool, and that's not something that and the reason that the styles are different, I should say, is because I love to see that stuff, but my brain has no interest in retaining it.
Yeah.
But you see it and you're like, that's cool. I'm remembering that for later.
Yes.
And then next thing you know, you got a style.
And you can also like, again, push it, more. If I wanted to go even further, like, can really sort of like push these sort of shapes, get an even differenter cow.
Yeah, more cartoony cow. This cow's freaking pissed.
Yeah. It's like, why you want to milk me, huh?
You never see me coming and milking you. And yet, you come to me during my free time to get my milk. I don't think so.
I don't think so.
Yeah, a little more angular cow.
Yeah, right? Like, if I was in a more angular mood, this maybe would have been the cow I drew.
Yeah, I like this cow.
So
I like this cow even better than the other cow.
Yeah.
And that's deleting your art.
That's deleting your art. Trying again. So that's gonna be my my homework assignment for you, which is I want you to make a drawing with a specific goal in mind, and I want you to do it twice. I want you to do it once, just like normal, like how you would do it if no one was watching, if no one was critiquing it. And then I want you to do it again and try and push as far towards whatever the goal is as possible. Basically, like, if, again, we can go back to our goals, it doesn't have to be one of these goals, but for example, again, if it's just accurate representation, that's cool, but like really then focus on detail. Focus on just like getting the likeness as close as possible. If you're focusing on like a mood or a feeling, like push it as far as you can towards that mood or feeling. Just like try, again, look up if it's a mood or feeling, like, or vibe or whatever, like just try Googling that word and seeing what art comes up or what visuals come up, and see which of those like resonate with you, and try and incorporate, I don't know, color or posing or composition or something. Whatever it is, I want you to write down what your goal is. I want you to, again, make the drawing twice. Once with like just like that goal in mind, and then again with just like that goal as your guiding, as your main focus, as just like pushing it, as even to the point where like you don't necessarily need to feel good about the drawing, but just like, does it do that one thing that your stated goal was? And if while you're drawing your goal changes, note that. Write down whatever your goal was, and then if it changed, write down what your goal ended up being if it changed. And I wanna look at both of those and talk about them and talk about how it felt doing it that way.
Hell
Next
yeah.
time.
That's a good assignment.
Yeah. And any, you know, any new techniques, anything that you find as you're pulling reference, as you're exploring whatever your art goal is for this piece, I want you to I just want you to not be afraid to try something that's fully outside your comfort zone. I want you to feel discomfort in the second drawing that you do. I want you to do a comfortable one and an uncomfortable one.
Yeah. Get out there.
Yeah. So that's figuring it out, getting away with it, part 1. Very excited to see what y'all come up with for part 2. And if you think of stuff you want to see me try and figure out live next month, leave it in the Drawclass Discord as well. So I can be thinking about that. Great. Thank you all so much for watching. Thank you all so much for supporting Drawfee on Patreon.
Thank you so much.
If you're watching the VOD later, hello. Consider supporting us at the Drawclass tier so you can catch these live. If you support us at any tier, you get access to the Discord, and we announce the earlier in the month what that month's Drawclass topic is. So if it ends up being a topic that you're super interested in, you can bump up for just that month and then bump back down, because it's fun to have people watching live, asking questions, engaging, and I hope this was helpful. I hope that you're able to make more art, better art that that you didn't think you could make, that you're willing to let yourself try to do it.
Yeah.
Because that's the only way you can get better, is by trying it. And I'm excited to see it. You don't have an end screen. All right, well then that's gonna be it. Thanks so much for watching. Thank you, Jacob, for co-hosting with me.
Thanks for having me. It was a great class, Nathan.
Yay! All right, have a good holiday, everyone. We'll see you in the new year.
Bye.
Bye.